Welcome to another edition of the Roundtable. My name is Paul Dingham, and I host this program, which appears in Marine City and St. Clair, now also throughout northern Macomb and all of St. Clair County on Channel 12 and Channel 916. We welcome you. As always, we have some very interesting guests. Today, that is no different. We have a couple representatives of Marine City High School. They are teachers and also members of the Teachers Union, and we wanted to bring them in and get a chance to talk to them about what's going on in the fascinating world of teaching. Let's welcome to Roundtable, Eric Longuski. Nice to meet you, sir, and see you.
See you again.
And of course, Ron Goldich, the teacher and also football coach of the Marine City Mariners. Welcome, guys, to the Roundtable set.
Thanks for having us.
As I alluded to in the beginning, there's been so much discussion of teachers and what's going on in many, many states, just not Michigan, with pros and cons. And I thought if you guys could come in, maybe we can get a good picture of what your feelings are.
There's been a lot going on, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of seems like, I don't see a target on Ron's back, but I think that there could be at times, So there's definitely kind of a feeling. The reason we were here is we've listened to previous programs, and Senator Phil Pavlo was on the show, and there's always two sides to the story. And some of the things that he brought up, they sound okay, but in reality, sometimes what actually happens in the classroom, it's not the same thing. And so we just wanted to come on and kind of talk about what a school's like from the inside and how it kind of goes from there.
You are still teaching?
Correct.
Okay, and what do you teach?
High school chemistry and biology.
Okay, and Ron, you?
High school physics.
Okay, so these are not simple courses. This is not, just a basket class.
No, it's not like, they all have their own special requirements. So it does sound nice saying you're a science teacher, but every teacher out there has their own issues they have to deal with, from kindergarten, which I could never do, all the way up. So we're kind of speaking on behalf of all of them too, because elementary anymore is completely different than what it used to be like when we were in elementary class. There's so many standards and tests that they have to give. It's a very difficult job. I would say even more so than the secondary jobs right now, based on our discussions with other teachers. It's a difficult job.
You alluded to Senator Pavlo. The legislature has made some changes recently. What are those changes? How do they affect you?
Boy, I'm not sure where to start.
Let me jump in here.
Yeah.
I'm in a unique position because I just had two kids graduate from Marine City High School, and I'm very proud of the education that they got. So I think at Marine City High School that they got an outstanding education. And one of the reasons I think they got an outstanding education is because they were exposed to veteran teachers, Mr. Longuski being one of them. And there's some strong evidence, statistically and research-wise, that says the most effective teachers for kids learning are veteran teachers. And some of the changes that Senator Pavlo is proposing is really attacking veteran teachers, and also creating a school system or a place where veteran teachers aren't going to be a part of. For example, charter schools. Me as a veteran teacher, there is no incentive for me to go teach at a charter school because the pay scale will be so low, I'd have no interest in going there. Also, cyber schools. Cyber schools, how do you create a veteran teacher in a cyber school? So there's two issues right there that, as a parent that was completely satisfied with our education, for new parents coming through, I'm in fear that these changes are leading in a different direction. So that's one of the points that I have to make there.
And Paul, I think in full disclosure, I should say that I'm also our acting union president. And so I'm fairly in tune with what's going on politically, but it's so hard to keep up. And like I say, Ron's totally right. As public school teachers, we take great pride in our job. We try to do the best we can, and Ron's an outstanding coach. He's been there since the day I've been there, and teacher, and puts a lot of time into it. And it's just kind of, at the current time, to see the negative kind of cloud that goes around teaching, and we don't like to see that. And one of the things we got, was kind of to piggyback on that, was that there was an email we got from Senator Pavlo, and it said that in a huge win for parents in St. Clair County was the expansion of cyber schools and charter schools in the state of Michigan. And I read that, and I couldn't quite understand how that would be a huge win for St. Clair County and Lapeer County, which Senator Pavlo represents, because you don't have that veteran teacher that Ron's talking about. You don't have that one-to-one contact. And I know my kids benefit from the great teaching they get at St. Clair Middle School and St. Clair High School. I have a sophomore and an eighth grader in East China schools also. And they benefit from those teachers that they're with every day. They make them different people and better people, and they can deal with their needs. Where opening cyber schools, to me, is a very troubling thing, because all the money that follows that student will now go to some corporation that's a for-profit corporation. And the dollar that I pay as a taxpayer that's going to be funneled to maybe a school from Florida, a company from Florida, won't benefit my children. And they're still going to be there for a few years. So every kid that leaves our public schools and goes to a charter school is going to siphon that money along with them. And currently they're looking at giving them almost the same amount of money per student to attend a brick and mortar school as they would give to go to a cyber school, an online school where there's obviously a huge difference in cost.
Is there not a limit to the number of charter schools, and is there a limit? There would be no limit to the virtual school.
Now, there are limits. Now, if I start speaking numbers, I'll probably make a mistake, but they've uncapped it. The big issue was they were going to have 1,000 or 2,000 initially. It's one of the two.
Oh, really? That many?
And then they were going to, this is already allowed. And this fall, they're going to study how those students did, and then see whether or not it was something we wanted to follow up on in the state of Michigan. Well, they pushed through Senate Bill 619, which opened up cyber schools to a huge number of kids, 10,000 and beyond for the future, and it could be far more than 10,000. But the actual numbers, I'm not too sure which paper to believe, but many students could go there and take the money with them. But this all happened in a hurry prior to the actual study of how well those first groups of kids did in a cyber school. And that's the thing that I don't know what the rush was to push it open before the reports came back. And
that's one of the things that problems me as a scientist and a science teacher, making decisions without any research,
Right.
not one piece of evidence to support your decision.
Mm-hmm.
That's scary for future generations to come when you make those type of decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Not one piece of evidence supports that charter schools or cyber schools produce a better product than public schools. Not one.
Okay,
and
that's a fair point.
see the fiery part of the coach coming out right here. And he's exactly right. I mean, because we take
That's
it very
good.
personal.
That's fine.
It is. I mean, he has some wonderful children, and that public school being our attack like this, it just comes off really wrong to us without, as he said, any data to support it. I mean, the data wasn't even released, and they expanded it, which is, as he said, a science teacher, as am I, that's troubling, so.
Do you allude to the fact that there is a bill now in the legislature? Or I thought all this was passed?
He'll speak better to the bills, but there's currently some legislation going through about retirement pay for teachers and changes to the retirement system. And again, how do you create veteran teachers? How do you entice young students to go into teaching from the long run when the retirement system is basically being turned into a piece of shambles? So, that's going to lose that veteran teaching staff when it's not a great opportunity to go into anymore, the field of education.
And that's a big issue there. I mean, the retirement issue is so complex, and I've spoken with Senator Pavlo about that. There are problems there. There has to be some corrections, but the corrections they're proposed to make, and it's being voted on, or it's already been voted on as we speak, the changes are so dramatic that you're not going to attract, quality people. The two of us, notwithstanding, but the majority of teachers that you see in a public school are incredibly good people.
Right.
Who are good students, and they could have been many other things, but they chose teaching as a career because of, and the problem is probably summers off, but that's the biggest problem we have, but that's not why they chose that. They chose it because it's their passion, they like being around
Right.
kids, and they could make a living being a teacher, and they'd have their small retirement they get when they're done. And so to change it, you're not going to get those kids. And now my kids will be through the system before the impacts are really going to be felt, but my grandkids won't. And so when you start changing public schools so dramatically now, it's not our students right now, our kids that are going to feel it. They'll be down the road when you don't get the Ron Goldiches and the Tony Scarcellis and the Bob Siskaviches to coach and teach, and I could name hundreds of teachers.
Well, and I have a unique kind of position here, as I get into most of the schools, from the elementary schools to the middle schools and the high schools, and we do a lot of programming with them. And I really do see some spectacular teachers in this district, and I imagine there's just as many spectacular teachers in other districts too. But you look at the Shelley Seleckis and music, which is just blow your socks off when those kids are so alive and they are so in love with that teacher,
Yeah.
And that's only one example, but I know that you hear about the chemistry teachers and the history teachers who light kids up, and I guess that's what parents want to see.
Right. And to even mention that, to go on further, you have these elementary school teachers and the band directors and
Oh, yeah.
the drama. There's so many good people out there. Now, and that leads to another point. We talked about other changes that came down the path in the last year. There are great teachers out there. I mean, like I said, their jobs are so difficult. I mean, to teach kindergarten through 6th grade, I can't imagine. But overall,
I wouldn't have the patience.
oh, it'd be amazing, wouldn't it? I mean, I couldn't do it
guys
either.
are going all the time.
That's nonstop, you know. And there were some changes to the tenure law and some
Okay.
tenure changes. And as
Let's for the people in the audience that might not know, what is tenure?
you know, tenure was basically the ability to have due process, and if you were to be dismissed, it'd be for just cause.
Okay.
So that if there was something wrong with what you're doing as a teacher, they had to follow a certain set of rules, and if they met the rules and you were no longer being a solid teacher, you'd be dismissed. But the thing was, just cause meant that the reason was, you know, related to your job, related to how you taught, things that you brought to the school as a professional. And then due process, they went through the steps, they gave you a chance to improve, correct the issue if it were something that was correctable, if it was something worse, that wouldn't happen. And you went through the series of
Well,
steps.
it's criminal or something along those
Exactly,
lines. They
exactly.
wouldn't- we're not talking about that.
It would be a much quicker process,
right.
exactly. And you would go through and dismissal could occur, and all teachers are in favor of, because every profession has people that don't do their job as well as
Right.
others, and the teachers are no different. Nobody wants to work with a teacher that is not doing their job. So we're all in favor of, you know, some tenure reform. And that's something that, as, you know, teachers we talk about. But what happened was a little different. Just that piece of legislation, there were 4 separate bills that came through, but the one that dealt with tenure changed it completely. Now it's no longer, you know, just cause and due process, as that teachers can be dismissed for any reason that is not arbitrary or capricious. And what that means is they just have to have a reason. And so it sounds like it'd be easier to get rid of a teacher who's not doing their job, but it was always there, but it could have been made better. Now it's to the point where there's no protection, there's no security, and someone like Mr. Goldich here could be fired for, you know, reasons that would be at the whim of an administrator. That something would not have been an issue in the past whatsoever. It's very subjective now. It's a very low standard for dismissal, and that doesn't help the climate of a school.
One of the things you hear about that on the other side of the coin is, well, if I'm in a private business, I'm working in a factory, that can happen to me.
Very much so.
I can be fired at you know, any. Similar?
The argument of comparing a business to school is so inaccurate of a comparison, because a child is moldable. A child is got so many variables going into it. It is not an end product. It is not something that can be shaved and retooled. So there's no comparison in my eyes between a business and a school because of these variables that a child comes with. To go back to Eric's point here about tenure, Marine City has had a winning football program for 25 years. If I take over and I have a losing season for 1 year, theoretically, according to this tenure law, I could be fired. Do I magically in 1 year turn into a bad coach after 25 years? I think not. But maybe a new AD comes in and he doesn't like anything I do. He has the power then to terminate my job. So to me, that new tenure aspect there is ridiculous. You have to judge somebody over their entire career, not over 1 year and a snapshot in time. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that was one of the, I had found an article on tenure, and that was one of the things I was going to ask you guys about.
And the same thing along with that, I think the big difference in my opinion is that if I were working for a company and I were making my boss money, and that would show that I'm doing my job, but maybe personality-wise, maybe there's some other things he didn't like about me, maybe there's some issue, he wouldn't let me go if I were making money and his company was benefiting because of my services. Schools are different. We get everybody that comes in the door, and we have to work with them in all different capacities, whether it be special ed, whether it be some other hard-to-measure field like the arts or elementary and so on. You have all these different fields, but it's hard to put a figure on how valuable we are. If we work for another boss, let's say a company making money, it'd be much easier to define, would he let us go or not? Well, in a public school, it comes down to, sometimes it could be down to dollars and cents. And you could take the lowest person and go with that. So it's a little different field. We don't control the product that comes in. We try to do the best we can with that product that comes in, our students, but we can't control that. And we also have the disadvantage of not being able to turn a profit. I mean, so it's those things you can't measure very easily. So.
Well, it's an interesting conversation and battle you're confronting here.
It really is. And the bottom line is, you know, it affects kids too. A lot of these changes people don't see, the eroding of the finances and the tightening of the belt and changing what we're allowed to do. And it makes a big difference. Class sizes go up, okay? You have a change in how it affects the children athletically and pay to play, and things get tighter and tighter. And as the economy goes down, I mean, teachers are realistic that obviously in bargaining, concessionary bargaining is kind of how it's going now, and you have to give back to make the school run. But there is a limit, and there's certain things that have to be, protected along the way, and that kind of is handled through collective bargaining when you do a contract, if there's enough funds to actually take care of the school properly. It's tough for everybody.
And then for our senator to come out and say that this is a win-win for our region here, when actually money's being taken away from our public schools, it's not a win-win for our region. It's a win-win. It's maybe a slight win for Michigan in regards to money being spent on education, but the end result of our public education in the St. Clair County, Lapeer counties, it's a downturn. We're losing money, and it's affecting our schools in a negative way. So he cannot say that it's a win-win for St. Clair County. It's absolutely not.
And is he saying this, what's the word I'm looking for? Is he the only one saying it, or is the whole legislature saying it?
Yeah, it's kind of, pretty bipartisan right now. And that's the problem. As teachers, we're caught in the middle of kind of a legislative battle. And I think the issue always comes down to dollars. I mean, the education budget in the state of Michigan is huge. It costs a fortune to educate students.
Right.
And that pot of money is being looked at, I would assume, by people that are much more savvy business-wise than Ron and I are. And we just want to go teach and do our job and do the best we can.
Right.
But there's some other forces out there at work that I'm not sure I really understand. But it comes down to the dollar figure associated with public education. It is expensive. It costs a lot to get students through school. And I think that causes some of the problems out there. There's some agendas out there that I really don't fully understand. But it's a lot has to do with the money part of it.
The teachers in the East China School District historically have gotten along with, quote-unquote, the administration, and you guys have been progressive together and worked out contracts, and you seem to, be able to work things out.
We still do, yeah, exactly. If left to us, in our own district, without a lot of, kind of outside influences, we do a real nice job. Our administration, they're solid. They work really hard. They put in long hours. And you can't, even say, cut administrators. Those people work very hard at their jobs, and they put in long hours. And so they're worth, they're worth being there. They do it. That's not quite said right, but they're hard workers, and we need them for the school to function.
You're both working.
And that goes for the custodians and the secretaries and the bus drivers. They're all putting in a hard day's work, and they're all trying their best. And it's just that now they're being squeezed so much, mostly by the retirement system and the cost. It's too complicated to get into, but the cost to hire an employee in the retirement aspect on that is no fault of the school or the employees, but it's a huge burden on the school.
If people have questions, how can they get a hold of you guys? Can they?
Yeah, they could always
go to a website, or
they can actually contact us through our school email. I mean, we're all there. I mean, everything about Mr. Goldich and I, Ron and I, it's all published. We have web pages. Our faces and names are right there. Our phone numbers, so they can easily get a hold of us. It's not a problem at all.
If they get a question.
Sure, we'd welcome that.
Good.
But so.
Well, but the most important thing of the whole interview, how is the team going to look?
Well, I'll tie it in with the idea of why has Marine City football been successful? And it's been successful because of this model that Jerry Workentine built, Bob Siskevich followed, Tony Scarcelli followed, and that is to hire a quality staff and a veteran staff. And what's kind of neat what's going on with me taking over, our entire staff as a whole is not changing. Because Tony is moving, Scarcelli, former head coach, is moving to the 8th grade, and the 8th grade head coach, Gary Griffin, is moving up to the varsity. So in this transition period, our entire coaching staff has stayed the same. So why do we have success? We have success because we have guys at the freshman level. Pete Fox, former head coach, outstanding coach. Joe Forgetto at the JV level, outstanding coach, could be a head coach anywhere he wants. On the varsity staff, Darren Letson, Gary Griffin, Dave Frent, Matt Pollock, Dave Osterlund, all these guys are outstanding coaches. If I left today, if I walked out of those doors, that program would still be successful because of these veteran teachers. And unfortunately, like I said, Senator Pavlov is doing everything he can in his power to remove veteran teachers and move that model in a different direction. Our model is the same that St. Clair baseball uses. They're successful, the same reason. A good Little League model, and that moves up to the varsity. So those models are what makes education successful. So if we want to improve education, we need to track those models and follow those models.
Well, it certainly has been proven over the years that it works. So We wish you luck this year.
Very
These guys
good.
do a
Thank you.
great job.
Yeah,
Those coaches
okay.
put in so much time, and I hope
Well,
they
you're
go.
coaching too, though.
Well, I'm not coaching currently, but I hope the Marine City team goes 8-1 this year.
Yeah.
They just won because my boy plays for St. Clair. So, but no, these guys' work is incredible. The work they put into that sport is amazing. I have the utmost respect for coaches.
And it is a 12-month job.
Yes, it
It's
is.
not a 6-month job or a 3-month job. It's
Right.
12 months because you're constantly looking at kids and thinking about plays and
Right.
doing those kinds of things. And I've watched you guys over the years, and I know that. So,
Right.
Yeah, the summers off, gets teachers in trouble. These coaches, their band directors, your teachers going back for training, they don't have summers off.
I
mean,
could
it's
sit in this
amazing.
studio and with the fans on and everything else, and I can hear the St. Clair High School band practicing in
Isn't
the
that
middle of
amazing?
August at 100 degrees over at Solis Field. You can hear the drums in the band, and the people are dropping, the kids are dropping. But it takes that kind of dedication.
It does.
Right.
Both in the classroom and on the field.
It really does.
And I'm proud of that. When I
Oh,
see
I
our
know you are.
band come on the field, I always tell our band director that I get goosebumps when I see them come on the field.
Yeah.
And it's because of their excellence. And their excellence is because of the time that they put in.
Yeah, that's true.
And Dave Urig is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, those kids are outstanding. Bert Van Dyke and the choir.
Oh.
What they do with these kids is it's something you should always take time out of the year to go see.
We just finished a whole series of evenings at the PAC, and we did both high schools, both bands, both choirs. And the performances were wonderful, absolutely
amazing.
wonderful. And the dedication and the time of the students as well as the teachers is to be complimented.
And their parents.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
an
yeah.
amazing amount of time they all put in. It always impresses me.
And I would say, I guess that's probably why I decided to become a little bit more politically active. I've never been politically active in my life, but to see things that are starting to chip away at this excellence, that
there you go.
starts a fire in me that, look out.
You can see the fire. You can see the
You
fire.
sure can, can't you?
Have we missed anything?
No, we just kind of want to get just the ideas
fine.
out there. We just
Absolutely.
we take
We
great
appreciate
pride in
it.
our careers, and we appreciate you giving us a voice.
No problem.
And we've missed so many things, and
There's a
we don't
lot.
mean to. We can't speak for all our fellow teachers because there's not enough time, obviously. But just our viewpoint down in Marine City is kind of where we're coming from. So we do appreciate it.
Good, not a problem.
Thank you, Paul.
See you all summer.
Thanks a lot,
See
Paul.
you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Good luck. That's about it for this edition of the Roundtable. Thanks very much for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Paul Dingeman. Stay tuned.